Have you ever wondered if your excessive autumn garden care could actually kill it? It sounds paradoxical, but it's true. Many well-meaning gardeners make mistakes that unfortunately cost their beloved plants their lives. Today, we'll explore how to properly prepare your perennial plants for winter, and I promise you'll discover at least one secret that will completely transform your approach to autumn plant care. Our goal isn't to fight nature, but to work with it. We're not trying to create a tropical paradise for your plants in the middle of winter. Instead, we'll simply help them endure the stress of frost, harsh winds, and sudden temperature changes. So, let's dive into the most crucial question. When? When exactly is the right time to grab your pruners and protective covers? And this brings us to the first and most common pitfall even seasoned gardeners stumble into: rushing things. Many gardeners, spotting the first yellow leaf or hearing a frost warning, immediately panic. They start bundling up their plants as if the next ice age is upon us. But that's a huge mistake. Plants actually need time to prepare for winter on their own. This crucial process is called hardening off. Imagine putting on your heavy winter coat in September. You'd be hot and uncomfortable, right? Plants feel exactly the same way. If you cover them too early, especially during warm and damp spells, they can actually cook or rot beneath the cover. Roots and stems will begin to rot, and that cozy blanket becomes an inviting home for mice. So what signal are we looking for from Mother Nature? It's quite simple, really. Wait until nighttime temperatures consistently drop below freezing, say, in the range of -1 to -5 degrees Celsius, while daytime temperatures hover around 0. The ground should have a slight freeze. This is that crucial click, nature's signal telling your plants, time to go to sleep now. And only then do we, the helping hands of the gardening world, step in. Our role isn't to wake them up prematurely, but to ensure they have a comfortable, peaceful, long winter's nap. Now let's talk about water. Many believe autumn rains do all the work for us, but that's not quite true. Imagine you're sending a plant on a long, arduous journey. Wouldn't you ensure it has enough to drink for the road? Winter, particularly a cold, windy one without much snow, can be a harsh drought for your plants. Icy winds can pull moisture from branches and needles just as efficiently as the scorching summer sun. But here's the catch. The ground is frozen. Roots, locked in frozen soil, can't absorb water to replenish what's lost. That's why, right before the deepest freezes, when leaves have fallen, but the soil hasn't yet turned to stone, we need to give our plants a grand farewell feast. This is known as deep saturation watering. Don't be afraid to overwater. Your goal is to soak the ground to a depth of up to ½ metre, about 1.5 feet. For a mature shrub, don't hesitate to give 1 or 2 buckets. For a tree, even 5. Conifers, roses and all evergreens will be especially grateful for this procedure. This reserve of moisture is their insurance against winter desiccation and a guarantee that they will awaken in spring green and healthy, not dry and brittle. And now we arrive at a topic that every autumn tends to split gardeners right down the middle: to prune or not to prune. Proponents of aggressive pruning argue, cut everything back to the ground to prevent rot and disease in the spring. Their opponents, however, object. Don't touch it. That will only weaken the plant before winter. So, what's the truth? The truth is, a complete chop everything down autumn prune is one of the most damaging myths in gardening. Let's understand why. Firstly, by autumn, plants store vital nutrients in their stems. This is their essential reserve for the winter. By cutting everything back completely, you're essentially sending your plants into winter hungry. Secondly, every fresh cut is an open wound. In the damp conditions and fluctuating temperatures of autumn, these open wounds become direct entry points for fungal infections and frost damage, including cracks caused by freezing temperatures. And here's the most insidious part. Pruning can actually trigger the growth of new, tender shoots. The plant, mistakenly thinking spring has arrived, expends its last reserves of energy on this new growth. The first series frost will mercilessly kill these delicate sprouts, leaving the plant itself depleted and weakened for the winter. So does this mean you can put your pruning shears away for the entire fall season? Absolutely not. You're not a barber giving a trim. You're a surgeon making precise cuts. Our goal isn't beauty, it's health. That's why in the fall, we focus only on sanitary pruning. Start by taking a close look at your plants. Here's what to look for. First, look for any broken or damaged branches. These will only snap off under the weight of winter snow, creating ragged wounds. A clean cut now is far better. Second, check for any signs of disease. Branches showing spots, galls, or powdery mildew are all potential sources of infection and must be removed and burned. Third, remove any dry or dead plant material. They offer no benefit and can become a haven for pests. Finally, if a shrub is overly dense, you can selectively remove a few weak, thin shoots that are growing inwards and hindering proper air circulation. Remember this golden rule. Anything that looks healthy and vibrant should be left until spring. Spring will reveal what has survived the winter and what hasn't. That's when you can tackle more extensive, formative pruning. Now let's talk about the plants you absolutely shouldn't touch with pruning shears in the autumn. Doing so would be a crime against both beauty and good sense. Picture this. The first frost arrives and your garden sparkles like a winter wonderland. What truly captures your gaze? The magnificent dried flower heads of hydrangeas, dusted with silver. The tall plumes of ornamental grasses, such as miscanthus or calamagrostis, swaying gently with the slightest breeze. Or the umbrella-like seed heads of sedum, which bravely maintain their form even under a blanket of snow. To cut back this beauty in autumn is to deny yourself a season of stunning winter decor. But aesthetics are only half the story. All these dried blooms and stems serve a crucial practical function. They act as natural snow fences. The snow isn't swept away by the wind. Instead, it accumulates around the base of the plant, creating an additional, optimal, and wonderfully warm blanket of insulation for the root system. What's more, the hollow stems of grasses and other plants provide essential winter homes for beneficial insects, which will emerge in spring to help you combat pests. So, when you witness this natural beauty, simply put down your pruners and savour the view. You'll have plenty of time to tidy everything up in the spring. Next up on our gardening agenda, dealing with fallen leaves. Many gardeners, especially beginners, aim for pristine tidiness. They meticulously rake up every single leaf, leaving the ground bare beneath their shrubs and trees. Their reasoning is straightforward. Pests and diseases can overwinter in the leaf litter. And, to some extent, that's true. However, in our pursuit of a perfectly sterile garden, we often overlook nature's own wisdom. Think about a forest. Nobody goes around clearing the leaves there, do they? No. Fallen leaves are nature's own blanket. They are the ultimate natural mulch. This protective layer insulates roots from sudden temperature swings, prevents the soil from freezing too deeply, and helps retain vital moisture. What's more, as they break down over winter, particularly under a blanket of snow, they enrich the soil with organic matter and feed earthworms, which are crucial for keeping the soil loose and fertile. So, what's the best approach? The key is to find a happy medium. You absolutely should clear leaves from your lawn, as they can smother the grass and cause it to rot. It's also a good idea to remove leaves from pathways and around delicate alpine plants or rockeries. But beneath your trees and shrubs, it's generally best to let the leaves remain. The sole exception is if your plants experienced significant disease outbreaks, such as powdery mildew or apple scab, in the previous season. In such instances, it's indeed best to gather and dispose of, or even burn, the infected foliage. And so, we arrive at the most important gardening practice of autumn, mulching. Let's clear up a common misconception right away. Mulch isn't a winter coat for your plants. Its primary purpose isn't to warm the roots like a heating pad. In fact, if it truly warmed them, it would stimulate new growth in winter, which would be detrimental, even fatal, to the plants. Mulch's main function is stabilization. Think of it like a seesaw. Winter weather often creates extreme fluctuations. A warm, sunny day might thaw the topsoil, only for a sharp frost at night to freeze it solid once more. These relentless freeze-thaw cycles are the absolute worst enemy for a plant's root system. As water freezes, it expands, literally rupturing those delicate hair-like feeder roots. But mulch, acting like a thick blanket, dramatically smooths out these temperature swings. Beneath it, the soil freezes more slowly and uniformly, and thaws just as gradually in spring. This protects roots from frost heave, being pushed out of the ground, and from other physical damage. Essentially, mulch creates a stable, protective microclimate for the roots, allowing them to survive winter with significantly less stress. All right, we've covered the why of mulching, but what can you actually use for mulch? The answer is simple: almost any organic material you have on hand. The most accessible and natural option is dry leaves. It's best to use leaves from trees that are rarely affected by diseases like maple, linden, or birch. Avoid using leaves from fruit trees, especially if they've been diseased. Neutralized sphagnum peat moss is another excellent option. It's loose, lightweight, and offers great soil protection. Mature compost or well-rotted manure can also be used. Not only do they provide excellent coverage, but they'll also break down into a wonderful fertilizer by spring. For acid-loving plants such as rhododendrons, hydrangeas and conifers, pine needles or shredded bark are ideal mulches. Straw is another excellent material to consider. It's lightweight and fantastic for trapping snow. And finally, a classic choice, spruce or pine boughs. It's beneficial in many ways. It resists compaction, allows for good air circulation, deters rodents, and effectively traps snow. The golden rule for any mulching material is that it must be dry, loose, and breathable. Avoid fresh grass clippings or any dense, compacting materials, otherwise roots underneath can simply rot. So we've chosen our mulching material, but now we face a second common pitfall that many gardeners encounter: timing. When exactly should you apply mulch? Logic might suggest the earlier, the better. You might think you need to apply it before the first hard freezes to prevent the ground from freezing. However, this logic is flawed. If you mulch too early over warm, moist soil, you create ideal conditions for fungi and mold to thrive. The plant's crown, the most vulnerable part for many species, can begin to rot. Furthermore, such a warm and cosy cover becomes an inviting winter home for mice, which can severely damage bark and roots over the winter. Therefore, remember this golden rule: mulch over frozen ground. Wait until the top 2 to 3 centimetres, or about 1 inch, of soil has begun to freeze, or has a slight crust of frost. This is your signal that the plant is dormant, and its root processes have slowed significantly. Now you can apply a layer of mulch about 5 to 10 centimetres, or 2 to 4 inches thick. An important nuance: never pile mulch directly against the trunk or stems. Leave a small, clear space around them. An air cushion of 3 to 5 centimetres, or 1 to 2 inches. This will protect the crown from rot during winter thaws. Every plant is unique, and it would be naive to assume that a one-size-fits-all approach to care will work for all. Most hardy perennials like phlox, astilbes or hostas will comfortably survive the winter under a protective layer of mulch and snow. However, every garden has its divas, plants originally from warmer climates that demand special attention. The primary candidates for extra winter protection are, of course, roses, especially hybrid teas and climbing varieties. Simple hilling may not provide sufficient protection for them. Another delicate beauty is the big leaf hydrangea, which blooms on old wood. Our goal is to protect these shoots from freezing, otherwise we won't see any blooms. This category also includes lavender, certain clematis varieties, tree peonies, and newly planted young conifers. All of them require more than just root zone mulching. They need full, comprehensive protection for their above-ground parts against frost, wind, and freezing rain. They demand an individualized approach, treating them like the VIPs of your garden. So, when basic mulch just isn't cutting it, it's time to bring out the heavy artillery. Protective covers. Forget plastic sheeting, buckets, or roofing felt. These materials don't breathe. They trap moisture, leading to condensation, and as soon as the first thaw hits, your plants risk rotting or developing fungal diseases. Our go-to choice is breathable materials. The most popular and convenient option is spun bond or horticultural fleece. Opt for a heavier density, around 60 grams per square metre, and ideally in white to reflect the spring sun. You can wrap it in multiple layers directly around the plant, or, even better, stretch it over a pre-built frame. Frames can be fashioned from almost anything: wooden stakes, plastic hoops used for cold frames, or even just a few sturdy poles firmly pushed into the ground. The key is to maintain an air gap between the plant and the covering material. It's the trapped air, not the material itself, that acts as the best thermal insulator. For smaller plants like roses, you can create a teepee by arranging evergreen boughs such as spruce or fir. For wrapping tree trunks, burlap or even old cotton sheets work perfectly. It's crucial that your protective cover is securely fastened, preventing it from being ripped away by the first strong winter wind. Now let's talk about a particularly vulnerable group: potted and container plants. Many of us cultivate flowers, small evergreens, or even miniature fruit trees on our balconies and terraces. And here's a crucial point to understand. Winter survival in a pot is an extreme challenge. Why? It all comes down to the volume of soil. In open ground, the soil freezes slowly, and often not to its full depth, drawing warmth from deep within the earth. However, in a pot, the soil volume is small and isolated. It freezes solid in a matter of hours, transforming into a literal block of ice. Roots simply cannot survive in such conditions. Even the hardiest plants, which might easily survive winter in a garden bed, are almost certain to perish in a pot, left on an exposed balcony. Therefore, simply leaving these containers to the elements is absolutely out of the question. They need to be rescued. This is not a hope for the best scenario. It requires our direct, thoughtful, and proactive intervention. So, wondering how to save your potted plants from the winter chill? We've got a few tried and true methods. The first, and often simplest, is to bring them indoors. However, here's a crucial point. Don't bring them into a warm living space. Potted plants actually need a period of cold dormancy. An unheated basement, garage, enclosed porch, or even a sheltered sunroom where temperatures consistently stay between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius, 32 to 41 degrees, is perfect. During winter, water them very sparingly, just enough to keep the soil from completely drying out. If bringing them indoors isn't an option, method 2 involves burying your potted plants directly in the garden. Simply dig a trench, place the pots so their rims are level with the surrounding ground, and fill any gaps with soil, peat, or fallen leaves. For extra protection, you can add a layer of evergreen boughs or straw on top. This provides their root systems with similar protection to plants growing directly in the garden bed. Finally, method 3 is perfect for those without a garden, but with an open balcony. Group all your pots closely together in the most sheltered, wind-protected corner. Place them snugly on a sheet of insulating foam. Then, wrap the entire cluster with old blankets, several layers of frost fabric, like horticultural fleece, or even pack them into large cardboard boxes, filling any remaining gaps with crumpled newspapers or dry leaves. This creates a collective mini-shelter, allowing them to share warmth and protect each other from the harsh elements. So, what should you do when the snow finally arrives? Celebrate it. And whatever you do, don't treat it like an enemy. Snow is a gift from nature, offering the ultimate, most effortless, and most reliable winter protection. Many people forget that even in bitter 30 degrees Celsius frosts, the soil temperature beneath a thick blanket of snow rarely drops below -5 to 7 degrees Celsius. This creates ideal conditions for most plants to successfully overwinter. So our main task isn't to clear snow, but to accumulate it. Never clear your garden paths by simply dumping snow onto your lawn or into an empty flower bed where it won't be beneficial. Instead, gather all the snow from your paths, patios, and even the greenhouse roof and pile it onto your flower beds, around your roses, hydrangeas, and young trees. Create small snow mounds over your most valuable plants. If you experience a winter with minimal snowfall, consider installing special snow fences to trap and accumulate it. Remember, a snow layer of 30 to 40 centimetres provides a robust guarantee that your plants will not freeze. It offers far superior protection than any artificial covering, even the most expensive horticultural fabric. Winter isn't just about the cold. For wild animals, it's also a time of hunger. Your garden, in particular, can seem like an irresistible buffet. The primary culprits, hares and mice, they can inflict significant damage, especially on young trees. Hares love to strip the bark from apple, pear, and plum trees, eager to reach the sweet cambium layer underneath. If they girdle a tree, stripping the bark all the way around, it will almost certainly perish. Mice, though, are far more insidious. They work stealthily beneath the snow, right at ground level, gnawing away at the bark around the tree's root collar. Come spring, when the snow finally melts, you might discover that your cherished young sapling has been hopelessly damaged. Protecting your garden from rodents, therefore, isn't a luxury. It's a vital part of winterizing your garden. This is especially true if your property is located near a forest or open field. Underestimating this threat can lead to very disheartening consequences. Fortunately, protecting young trees from hungry pests isn't as difficult as it might seem. The most reliable method is a physical barrier. Wrap the trunks of young trees from the ground up to about 1 metre, roughly 3 feet, high. What should you use? A specialised plastic mesh designed to deter rodents, widely available at garden centres, is ideal. This mesh allows the tree to breathe while being tough enough to prevent animals from gnawing through it. A more budget-friendly option is to use evergreen branches such as spruce or fir. Simply tie the branches around the trunk with the needles pointing downwards. Rabbits and mice alike will be deterred by the sharp prickles. You can also get creative with readily available materials such as cut plastic bottles, old roofing felt, or even several layers of nylon stockings. Crucially, ensure the material isn't too dense, which could trap moisture and cause the bark to rot. A popular, but often ineffective tip is to whitewash tree trunks in the fall to deter rodents. They simply chew right through the lime. Whitewashing is primarily for protecting trees from sunscald in early spring. To deal with mice active under the snow, you can strategically place poison baits inside short sections of pipe. This prevents birds from accidentally ingesting the poison. You'd think evergreen plants of all things would be perfectly equipped to handle winter. They are, after all, called evergreens. However, even these resilient plants have an Achilles heel, and its name is the winter sun. Yes, you heard that right. The sun, not the bitter cold. The most dangerous period is late February and March. By then, the sun's rays become quite intense. Snow may still be on the ground, but the soil is frozen solid, and the roots are dormant, unable to draw water. Yet the needles, exposed to the sun, heat up and begin actively evaporating moisture. This creates a physiological drought. Moisture is lost, but no new water can be absorbed. As a result, the needles become dehydrated, turn yellow, and eventually dry out. This phenomenon is often referred to as spring sunscald or winter burn. Young evergreens like arbor vitae, spruces, and junipers are particularly susceptible, especially those planted in open, sunny locations. Come spring, instead of vibrant green foliage, you might find unsightly rusty patches, or even entirely dried out branches. That's why sun protection for your conifers is just as crucial as sunscreen for our skin in summer. While winter sun can pose its own challenges for evergreens, heavy, wet snow presents another, often more damaging threat. Their sprawling, dense canopies can act like giant scoops, accumulating massive amounts of snow. As long as the snow is light and fluffy, it's usually not a problem. However, during a thaw, it becomes saturated, heavy, and incredibly sticky. Under this immense weight, branches, particularly on narrow columnar varieties like arbor vitae and junipers, can start to bend, distort, and eventually snap off right at the base. The canopy collapses, destroying its ornamental shape, and recovery is often very difficult, sometimes impossible. To prevent this kind of damage, Tall and sprawling evergreens should be carefully tied up or wrapped before winter. Using a soft rope or twine, gently wrap the entire canopy in a spiral motion from the bottom up, coaxing the branches closer to the main trunk without pulling them too tightly. This makes the plant more compact and sturdy, allowing snow to slide off easily and harmlessly. Furthermore, after heavy snowfalls, especially those with wet, clingy snow, make sure to head out to the garden and gently dislodge any accumulated snow from the branches. Do this gently and carefully, tapping the underside of the branches with a broom handle or a stick wrapped in a soft cloth to avoid damaging the bark or needles. Winter weather is notoriously fickle and unpredictable. Just when you're accustomed to biting frosts, a prolonged thaw can suddenly set in. Snow melts, streams run, and it feels as if spring is right around the corner. This often sparks an irresistible urge in many gardeners to rush out to the garden and remove all the protective coverings. Surely the plants are overheating, they might rot. This, however, is yet another critical mistake. Never rush to remove plant covers during a winter thaw. Firstly, thaws are almost invariably followed by a sharp and significant drop in temperature. Plants, already softened by the temporary warmth, will experience extreme stress from the returning hard frosts. This is far more damaging than consistently cold weather. Secondly, even during a thaw, covers provide a more stable microclimate, shielding plants from sudden temperature shifts. Your task during a thaw isn't to remove covers, but to provide ventilation. If possible, partially open the ends of the covers or create small vents to allow for good air circulation and prevent damp rot or fungal issues. Then, as temperatures begin to fall again, close everything securely. Always remember, the greatest enemy isn't frost itself, but instability. So, to conclude, let's define the guiding principle for all our autumn garden preparation. That principle is moderation. Our goal isn't to construct a 5-star heated hotel for our plants. There's no need to try and outsmart nature, creating a tropical paradise in the middle of winter. Overwrapping or creating completely sealed, unventilated structures often does far more harm than good. In these overly protected thermoses, plants can rot, become susceptible to fungal diseases, and lose their natural hardiness. Winter is a natural and necessary period of dormancy for most perennial plants. They are genetically adapted to cold temperatures. Our role isn't to save them from winter, but merely to help them navigate its most extreme challenges: snowless frosts, biting winds, heavy snow loads, and scorching spring sun. We aren't battling the elements. We are wise facilitators. Understanding this simple principle is the key to a healthy, beautiful garden that will burst forth with lush, vibrant life every spring. Now let's finally reveal that big secret I promised you earlier. Here's what often shocks many gardeners. The biggest enemy to your plants in winter isn't actually the cold itself. That's right, you heard me correctly. The real culprit is instability. Repeated freezing and thawing cycles in the soil literally tear apart delicate feeder roots. Icy winds dry out branches just as effectively as a summer drought. And that bright February sun can literally scorch evergreen needles. Do you see the crucial point? Our goal isn't to warm plants up, but to stabilise their environment. Covers and shelters protect not so much from the cold, but from harsh winds and intense sun. Mulch doesn't generate heat. Instead, it prevents the soil from rapidly thawing during the day and refreezing at night. Snow, by the way, is an ideal stabiliser. Once you understand this, you'll stop making the common mistake of over-bundling your plants, essentially creating a greenhouse effect where they simply rot. Instead, you'll start acting as a wise helper of nature, not a frantic rescuer battling the elements. So, let's sum this all up. Winter care for perennials isn't a battle against frost. It's a wise collaboration with nature, rooted in understanding its processes. Proper watering, smart pruning, timely mulching, and reliable covering. These are the 4 pillars that support the health of your winter garden. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found any of this information helpful, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us create more useful content like this. What are your own secrets for preparing your garden for winter? Or perhaps you've made mistakes you'd like to warn others about. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's exchange experiences.